Welcome back everyone to our YouTube channel. So in today's tutorial we are going to be talking about layers and non-destructive editing. So when you hear the word layers, what comes to your mind? So in let's take for example transparent sheets of papers, transparent sheets. So layers are like transparent sheets stacked above each other. So these layers help us to achieve and manage our design properly. So as a designer that is using Photoshop, layers will be layers panel will be one of the panels you'll be going to oftentimes to ensure your design is okay, because you can't work with Photoshop without layers. You can't handle Photoshop without working with your layers panel. So let's dive into, because today's class will be a little bit of explanatory and practical as well. So let's dive into the Photoshop environment. Let's create a new document. Let's use our usual dimensions, 1080 by 1080 for the size. Okay, we are in the Photoshop workspace now. So where we locate the layers panel is here. So some people, you might not see yours here depending on how you arrange your Photoshop workspace. Some people's layers panel might be here. So you will actually see this icon, while some might actually be here. So some people's own might actually be at the bottom somewhere, let's say somewhere like very below the, yeah, somewhere like this at the bottom of the panels. So but I prefer keeping my layers panel close to my channels, because there are sometimes I have to toggle between the layers and the channels. So what I said about layer earlier was, as I said in our introduction class, every single element on the workspace make up the design. So and in Photoshop, each of these single elements to have your own specific layer where you can work with, where you can twist it to whatever way you want. So let's talk about layer organization. Let me create different layers here. So to create layers, we have done it in our previous tutorial. So to create layers, you can just come down to this create new layers icon at the bottom here. Just click on it. So you can create multiple layers depending on what you want to work with. So the layers thumbnail is this other place, this place like this, these pictures here at the bottom, at the very close to the layers name is the layers thumbnail. So the the picture that might be there depends on what is actually on that layer. So whatever you work on, whatever layer you're working on the workspace, it will show the picture, the element of that layer on that particular thumbnail. So this helps you to identify which of the layer you're working on at the moment. Let's bring a picture to our workspace. So let's say this picture, for an example, is quite small. So as I said earlier in the previous class, if you bring any picture from outside of the Photoshop environment to your Photoshop workspace, it will always bring it in as a transformation uh, uh, document. So it has that transformation dot around the edges. Each of the edges of the object has that transformation dot. So what you do is you will not see it on the history because it's not actually placed. It's only when it is placed that you see it on the history. So now this is this transformation option helps us to increase, reduce, resize our image to whatever however we want it. So let's say since you are not comfortable with this and Photoshop has given us an option to increase it, so we make use of it. We increase it to suitable point you want. So that actual size was actually telling us that that size is actually for is much smaller than that our dimension we are using. So now to place it, you just click on enter on your keyboard. So it will place it on your workspace. So now if you notice on the history panel, you see place smart object. Now that very layer is the every layer where our picture is if you notice on the layer span, you see every other every except from the background layer, every other thumbnail is almost same is the same except from the background layer and the one we just brought a picture into. So even if I hover on it, it will tell me that it's a smart object, obviously. So I've mentioned what smart object is in the course of our previous videos. So our layer organization is very, very important. So layer organization is it helps us to remember to know which one is which. So we can actually rename our layer, give them names that we are comfortable with. Like if you want to rename this layer now, you double click on the name. Now it will you see the part that gets highlighted. You can rename it to give it whatever name you want. Let's say picture. Let's say picture. So you have noticed now we have the background layer, the layer one, the layer two, and the picture. So giving our layers name help us to easily recognize which layer is which one is which. When you are handling on multiple on a very large task that involves dealing with multiple layers, so it's very very important to name your layer. And some people go as far as giving their layers colors for recognition. So let's say I give this layer a red, and if you notice close to at the where the visibility icon is, this particular icon, the eye icon actually, is you see I have changed the color to red. So I can actually change this one to yellow, change this one to blue. So all these things I'm doing here is to help us identify which layer is which and which one works with which one. So I can say um, layer one should always work with layer two. So I can give layer two also yellow. So I will basically know that layer two and layer one they are almost doing the same thing. So we can do the same thing to text layer. Let's input a text layer for the purpose of this explanation. So now if you notice, the layer that is on top will be the one that is more visible. Now we can't see that our text layer because our text layer is below other layers. Is like the third layer. So to make it visible now, we have to come to the layers panel and click on it, drag it to the top. That's when you have the layer visible. Now we have our text layer, which is the Usum. So we can actually rename it to say, let's say text. Now we have our layers text. So now that layer has actually replaced one of our layers, one of the empty layer we created. So as I said earlier, layers are transparent transparent stacks of pictures, like transparent pictures. Let's say pictures without background. So transparent pictures stacked on each other. So now you can put something on a layer. So now that particular layer we inputted a text on that layer. So that is why that it seems like that one is gone and we have the text layer. So it's not actually gone. The text layer actually replaced the other one. So now what we have here is our text layer. Let's switch to our move tool. I'm just clicking here or switch back by clicking the T. So now we can move around. You can move it around because it's on a separate layer on its own. It's actually on a separate layer of its own. So we can up the visibility of this text layer or we can up the visibility of the picture layer. So once you up the visibility of the picture layer, it will seem like the picture is deleted, but it's not deleted. So how do I know it's not deleted? Because if I check the history panel, I will see recent activity I made, which is layer visibility. This is actually telling me that I have altered the layer visibility, I've worked on the layer visibility. So to bring it back, you just click that very place again to bring back our layer visibility. So that is the basic ways of managing your layers, arranging it. So some people even go as far as grouping the layer. So I said in our former class that to group a layer, you have to click on the layer you want. Select maybe if you want it to take for example want to group two layers, you click on it, then you hold control, click on the layer and the next layer you want to group. Now the group on it is we either use the shortcut key Control and G or Command and G on your Mac, or we come down here. So let's do it. Let me practicalize it now. Control and G. So this is what happens, or Command and G on your Mac actually. So to let's go back in our history. So to do it the other way around, which is actually there are different ways of doing it. So to do it the other way around without using shortcuts, we right click on the one of the layers. We come to the options here. You see group from layer, and click on group from layer. Now the dialog box will come up telling us, asking us what name do you want to give to the layer. So we can choose to give it whatever name. So the default Photoshop name is always group one. So we can click on it. Okay, you can choose to accept this name, and you also have the ability of renaming the groups to whatever you want. Let's say texts and pics. So you can rename it to whatever you want. And also, aside from grouping it that way, let's go back in time. We'll go back in history actually. Aside from renaming it that way, aside from grouping it that way, you can also group it by coming down to the bottom where you see the create new layer, the trash can, which is delete, and the folder icon. Just click on it to group it. So it's as easy as that. Layer organization is very, very important in Photoshop when you're working with complex, and even if you're not working on complex more heavy tasks. It's always important to organize your layer in a more suitable way that you as the organizer, you as the designer, you are going to understand it. And also maybe you are trying to submit it to someone, the person you are giving it to will actually understand how, where, which is which. So layer organization is very, very important. So next we'll be heading to the layer styles and blending mode. So layer styles are like the way you want the kind of effect you want to be on your layers. So how you want your layers to look like. Say, let's take for example, you want your layer to have a particular kind of stroke around it. You want your layer to have the gradient. Yeah, you want your layer to have the shadow. So those are like layer styles. So these styles you can find them on the blending mode, on the blending option. So let's use this text for an example. Let me increase the size of the text by just coming to the characters panel, and then we increase it with this slider. So let's make it one, let's make it 120. Yeah, 120 is much is better. So now to add a style to this particular this text, this very text, what we do is this very text layer, what we do is we right click on the text layer, and at the options here you see blending options. So that's where you click on the options. So these blending options are, we have several options to choose from, different ways we can actually work on this text layer. Let me keep it in a way that it will be, at least some part of the text will be visible. So I think this is okay. So we can actually change the blending option to, maybe I want to add a stroke to it. As I said earlier, you can add this thing I'm doing now, you can do it on any kind of layer, maybe a shape, a picture. I can add a stroke to a shape or a picture. So maybe you say probably want to add an inner glow. So now if you look at it, it looks as if it was engraved from the wood, but it's just because of that inner glow feature. So you can add, sorry, inner shadow feature. You can add inner glow. You can add um, satin. You can customize it to whatever you want. Color overlay, gradient, and mind you, my gradient might not be as your own because it is actually the most recent the jobs I've done and the gradient I've used recently. That's why it is this way. So yours might be black and white or something. So we have the pattern, we have the outer glow, we have the drop shadow. So the drop shadow is just like making it look like it's actually there. So these are like kind of some kind of tips and tricks that some designers use to make some text look realistic, and also some objects in some layers look more realistic. So so we can aside from the drop shadow, you can also do the bevel and emboss. So this, I think this might not really show. Let's say if we increase the, so as time goes on, we are going to make a video on on how to understand each of these styles. So these are the styles that um, you can add effect. These are the different effects you can add to your layer. So if you notice at my layer now and the layers panel now, you see different effects that I've clicked so far. So as I'm clicking on each of them, it is actually adding. So it will add until whenever I want to do it. So let's say for example I want to close this now and I do OK. I click on OK. So the most recent one I selected is the bevel and emboss. So every other one is going to just disappear because that's the only one I highlighted is bevel and emboss. So now if you don't want this effect to be visible, you can just come here at the just close to the FX. Come close to the FX, click on it, and it will hide the effect. So and if you want to know that a layer has an effect, you see the FX sign at the right. So that means that very layer has an effect attached to it. So that is that for the layers, styles, and effect. And non-destructive editing. So let's talk about the actual one that is very much interesting. Non-destructive editing. So non-destructive editing, this means making changes without permanently altering your original image. You can see how you can imagine how cool that would be. You can, meaning you can adjust it and you can still go back to how it was originally. So let's take for example, let's work on the picture. Let's use the picture for an illustration. Let's say, for example, we want to adjust the uh, make some adjustment to this picture, maybe in the brightness, in the contrast, or in the vibrance or something, saturation. So we will just come down here now, very close to the group icon. You see an icon at the left, and this is where you see where you get to click, where you get to make adjustment to your layer. You click on it, you see different options here that you can make adjustment to. You can click on the solid color, the gradient, the pattern, the brightness and contrast, the levels. You can do so many other things with this. So now this is actually to increase the brightness. Let me just use for an example. You can increase the brightness, increase the contrast, however you want to work on it. Notice what happens at this layer. Now it has added like an adjustment on top of our picture. So on top of our on top of our picture layer. So this is because we chose it. This is because we selected the picture. Had it been we selected the bottom layer, it would have done the same thing, but it would have been on top of the bottom layer. So if every other layer here will have this effect, but let's say we want it to be on just the picture layer, what we do is we right click on that adjustment, layer, right click on it, and then we create a clipping mask. Aside from going there, we hold on alternate and then hover at the space between the picture and the adjustment layer. We click on it. So now if you notice we have made a clipping mask on that picture. It will create a clipping mask on the bottom layer, on the layer just below it. So this is what this does is it is actually trying to clip the feature of the top layer to the bottom. So the feature, whatever happened, so we are trying to like clip the two layers together. We are linking them. Let me use that word linking. We are linking the two layers together. So whatever happens at the bottom is as a result of what happened at the top. So that is actually it. So that is non-destructive editing, meaning if we don't want, say let's say if we don't want this feature again on our layer, on our pictures layer, to show you the non-destructive nature, you can just come to the visibility icon, click on it. It will just become invisible. The adjustment layer becomes invisible. Now we can always have our image back as it was originally. So this feature is very sweet, very nice because you get to um, always go back in time, go back without going back to the history, without working on the history. You get to always go back and come back without altering your original picture. So that's one of the reasons why I love using the adjustment layer. Okay, let's talk about the layer marks. So the layer marks actually, unlike the adjustment layers, this one creates a marks on the object you want to work with. Like just create a mini layer linked to the layer you want to work with. So it's like on the same layer span, but it is linked. So this is it. It creates a layer mask to the layer you want to work with. Let's say we want to erase this part. Let's make this S and U behind the cup and some part of this M behind the laptop and also behind the phone. What we do is click on the layers marks. We click on the layer mark. So the layer marks is just at the left hand side of the adjustment layer. So we click on it. Once we click on it, now we come to the text. Now if you notice, our layer mask is selected. This is the layer mask is selected. It's actually linked to the text. So now we can come here and then erase the part we don't want. And what you do is you have to just be very careful so as not to erase it too much. So you erase the part you don't want and then you do the same thing. Now to reduce the size of the brush, as I said earlier, you just click on the curly brace at your laptop, the curly bracket, either the square or the square bracket or the curly bracket. You just reduce it to its size. The left is to reduce it, the right is to increase it. So let's reduce it smaller. Now, okay, let's go back with our control Z, which is command and Z in the MacBook. So now I think this should be okay. Now for the same thing in the phone axis. So if you feel you are not okay with it, you can always adjust it. So now I have made it look as if our I've made it look as if our text is behind. Now if you notice, if you some people might think this text is altered, it has been altered with, but no, I can still go back to the text. Now if you notice here, this is if I unlink it now, if to unlink it, you just click on here to unlink it. To link it back, you just click the same place. You have linked the marks back. So the marks is actually hiding. So what the layer marks does is to create like a kind of paper in which you can draw on it to hide some certain part of the object. Now I have hidden this part now. What happens here is each time our brush is always set to black and white. So now the black part is always to hide the object while the white part is to reveal it. Now let's say we want to reveal the part we have hidden back. On your keyboard you can just press on D to switch your colors for and between the foreground and the background. So now to bring it back here, you just erase it again with your white brush. Erase it again. It will unhide the part that was hidden. Notice what happens here now. It has brought it back. So now the white part is to hide it, and black part is to the black part is actually to hide it, while the white part is to reveal it. Let's look at it as dark dark part looking hidden. Darkness, let's say darkness is for hiding things, while light is to reveal things. So that is the same thing that happens here. So that is that for layer marks. So the concept of layer marks is actually to help you hide some part of your layer that you don't want to be visible, and also to reveal it anytime you want to reveal it. So layer marks is very useful because if take for example you have made a mistake, if you don't want the layer marks again, you can always click on the layer marks and delete it. That is where the non-destructive editing comes in. You can always delete the marks and you can always bring it back. You can always bring it back, creating it the same way we created it before. This is it. So either ways, you can delete it and bring it back. So you can work. This layer mask helps you to recover the same thing that adjustment layer does. So it is the editing you do on any of the layer is not temporary. Um it's not permanent. It's just temporal editing, meaning you can always go back. So that is it. And in layers, you can. I said something about grouping layers. You can always select the layers you want and group it. So and you can also link layers together by using the link option. So let's say to link two layers. Let's say to link this our let's go back. Let's go back on our layer marks. Let's unlink this first and delete our layer marks. So just press the delete on the keyboard to delete the layer mark. Now to link this together, to link this back, this text and the picture together, you click and hold on the text and click and hold on the picture. Now it has selected the two layers you want to link. Then you notice at the bottom, just behind the FX key, FX icon, you see the link icon. It looks like a chain. So now you click on it. Now it's saying link layers. You click on it to link the layers together, meaning you can anytime you drag any of the layer on the workspace, two of them goes together because it is linked. Because it is linked. So to unlink it, you just click one of them. Just click one of them, select one of them, and then click the linked icon at the bottom. It will unlink it. You notice now it is unlinked. Our text is on its own, and our picture is running around. So that is it for the layers and non-destructive editing. Thank you so much for being with us in this class up to the end of this class, and we are going to see you in the next class. Please don't forget to like these videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel to see more content like this. Thank you. Bye.